Welcome to the Meet the Team podcast. I'm Brady Jolly. I'm with my good friend Jeff Vitron. We also call Jeff the Wizard around here. So getting to get to know him a little bit today and learn about all the many things he does for Jolly. So we were just talking about it. I said this could be a long podcast, but we're going to have to try to condense it as much as possible.
I've been here a while.
Because you have done a lot.
Yeah.
Jeff, just start with like personal life, not Jolly related, where you grew up, where you live now, family, what you like to do for fun, that sort of stuff.
Sure. Okay, let's see. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, moved to the northwest suburbs of Chicago when I was 5, I think, and spent the rest of my life in the Chicago area. Grew up very close to Arlington Park Racetrack, which I hear now has sold and is going to be the new Bears Stadium.
Wow.
So that's kind of cool.
Really?
So I wasn't into horse racing at all, but I lived, within spitting distance of the racetrack, which
cool.
Now I would have grown up next to the Bears Stadium, which is kind of neat. Yeah. Lived in Chicago when I got a little bit older and went to Judson College. It was college at that time. Now it's Judson University, a small college in that Chicago area. Met Dara, my wife, there, and we've been together now 20 plus years. We got married in 2000, so whatever year it is how many years we've been married. Makes it easy. So 24 years this year, and have 2 sons, Kent and Reed. Kent works here with us in the warehouse and does parts running for us. He's our tool master, so he's in charge of all the tools and everything here, so great fun to work with him on a daily basis. Dara now is working here in dispatch part-time, so that's pretty cool. She's like a pinch hitter. She just gets in there and helps out wherever, and that's kind of me too. So
your whole family.
The Vitrons are just here to help out however we can. So let's see. That's family stuff. And
what do you like to do for fun besides for work?
Fun, yeah. So my fun tends to look like other people's work, I think, because I enjoyed like being productive and staying busy with stuff. So like right now it's firewood season. I love the whole process of cutting up firewood. So we just had felling day. This year I decided I was going to cut all the trees down on one day, which the day following I realized was a mistake because I was hurting pretty bad. It was a full day of cutting. But I got about 10 trees down and had a couple, you always have a couple, I don't want to say close calls, but like, oh yeah, that could have gone bad, but I'm careful. So anyway, I just enjoy that whole process. So that's something I do for fun this time of year. I'm a big reader. I enjoy science fiction a lot. So I'm slowly working my way through the full works of Peter F. Hamilton right now. So if you're looking for good sci-fi, I can recommend him with a couple qualifications. So you can ask me about that some other time if anybody's interested. So, yeah, reading. I do a lot of, like, computer work. I enjoy fooling around doing different stuff. I do, like, some development work on the computer, so I have some fun with that.
Now, What about your farm? Tell us about what you got going there.
So, I live in Pendleton County. My in-laws live on 80 acres. So, yeah, Dara and I we met in the Chicago area. She's lived here, Florence area, her whole life. When she came to school, her folks actually were in the process of retiring and moving out to this 80-acre farm in Pendleton County. So they left Florence, moved out there. And then she and I, 2-3 years later, we got married, and they would joke with us and say, hey, if you ever want to move to Kentucky, we'll help put you up on the property, Never thinking we would take them up on that. And we were kind of doing the numbers when she got pregnant with Kent. We were like looking at the numbers of living in Chicago and raising kids. And I was like, boy, this math doesn't work out too good. I said it'd be great if we could make like Chicago money, but live in a non-Chicago place. And it was like, oh, well, what if we lived in northern Kentucky and I could work in Cincinnati, make like Cincinnati money, live in Kentucky. And at that point, I didn't know what those numbers would look like, but I thought city, rural area, pretty close together. Hey, that'd be great. Turned out you can make just as much money in Northern Kentucky as you can in Cincinnati, but
Yeah.
at the time I didn't know that. So we called them up, called my in-laws up, said, hey, we'll take you up on your offer. So we live on a half-acre plot on the corner of their 80-acre farm, which is super cool. We actually just had it surveyed. It's officially ours. We've kind of been squatting on that half acre for the last 20 years.
Awesome.
So yeah, we moved here the year Kent was born. So we've been here 20 years, or been on that farm 20 years. So Dara's dad raises cows. We've got maybe somewhere between 20 and 30 cows all the time roaming around in the fields. We have honeybees. Dara's getting very involved in the honeybees. Her dad's been doing that his whole life, basically. I did it for a while, and it turns out, so when you raise bees, when you keep bees, you'll get stung. There's no way to avoid that. And one of two things happen. Either you get acclimated to the bee venom and it doesn't bother you, or it bothers you worse and worse and worse. Well, I'm the latter.
Really?
Yeah.
You would think that you would just build up a natural immunity
Correct.
no matter what.
And some people do, but some people do not, and I'm one of those. So there was one season when I got stung a lot. I dropped a hive box and had the whole swarm angry at me. And then I was moving a hive by myself at night thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing. The bees were so mad at me still because I made them angry the way I got them in the box. And I thought, well, I'll let them cool off for 8 hours and I'll go move it in the dark and they won't bother me. They bothered me. Anyway, I got stung a lot that year. And every time I got stung, my reactions were worse and worse and worse. So, short story, I've got to quit working with the bees.
Wow.
I can't do that anymore. But Dara loves it, and she takes after her dad, and he's hardy as anything, and he gets stung all the time and hardly seems like he even notices it.
So does it bother her when she gets stung?
Worse than her dad, but way less than me. So
I'm a customer of your guys' honey, and we love it. We use it all the time. It's amazing. The new fall honey's awesome.
Yeah. So we got bees, we got cows. My wife has a ton of cats. I also have cats, I guess. I blame them on her. I was a non-cat person when we got married. Now I'm a full-vetted cat person, so the toxoplasmosis got me, and so now I like the cats just as much as anybody. But we have 10 cats currently.
Wow.
They're all indoor, outdoor, so they come and go as they please. They basically run the place.
That's awesome.
And, it's just beautiful property. Woods, so I can just go out in my backyard and cut my trees down and stuff, so that's fun. And, it's great.
Cool. All right, so let's get into work. Jolly.
Yes,
Let's.
okay.
So how long's it been since you started?
So 11 years, I guess. I think next May will be 11 officially, with a short break in there. I think I was away from Jolly for 6 to 9 months and then came right back.
So give us, I know it's a lot of roles, but how you got into the trade.
Yeah. So
why, and then what that developed into.
It is a weird story, isn't it?
It really is.
As I think about it, it's like, okay, this is crazy. I feel like sometimes I must be like a character out of a book, like my life doesn't seem real to me even sometimes. So I had like a 25-plus year career doing IT stuff. Web development was probably most of what I did. And I got to be 40, and I thought, I just need to get away from the desk. I just need to do something that isn't computers. So I'm going to go the exact opposite of computers that I can think of. Well, my grandpa was a plumber his whole life, ran his own plumbing business. His son, my uncle, was a plumber his whole career. My dad did that briefly, went to college, never touched plumbing again. So the gene skipped him. Mm-hmm. But I thought, well, hey, I know that work, and I know that I could do that, and I think I would enjoy it. I'm not great with my hands, but I can usually figure stuff out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to maybe do plumbing, So I called the leader of a small group I was part of at the church I attended at the time. I said, hey, I'm looking to make a big change. I know you're kind of connected to the community. You know a lot of people. I'm willing to start at the bottom, make bottom pay, and work my way up, but I'm thinking something in the trade, something with my hands, maybe plumbing. Okay. So 10 minutes later, I got a call from your dad. Very jolly. Said, hey, I hear you're looking to get away from your desk. Yep. Said, well, I think I can set you up. So it was quick. Like 2 weeks later, here I was coming into Jolly Plumbing, which was in a different building at that time. We had a different office location, much smaller, way fewer technicians running. And so I did a year as an apprentice in the field with George Shelton, who was an amazing trainer. He knew everything. He could do it, and because he could do everything, I did everything because I just did whatever he was doing. So HVAC, plumbing, electrical occasionally. I mean, we weren't like doing that officially, but he could do all that stuff, right? So we just figured it out. My very first plumbing job, I thought, what's my first job going to be? You know, like that'll be interesting. Never would have guessed in a million years. We were on the river boat fixing a leak in a drain line in the bowels of this river boat. So we get there and George says, see that corner over there that's all dark and there's no lights? He said, you got to crawl back in there and there's a leak in one of those pipes. So you're going to have to feel with your hand back up in there, find that leak, and then you let me know when you find it. And so the first plumbing tool I used on my first official job was a pair of tin snips because I had to cut this steel mesh out of the way so I could get my arm back up in there. So here I am all like coiled around these pipes, reaching my arm back in there, found the leak. He gave me a little epoxy putty. We just put a little putty patch on it, and that was a pretty good fix.
We're lucky that he didn't run you off with that very first job.
Well, he said a lot of people don't make it through that. He said that's one of the like weirdest and worst things that we do, you know. He said, but you got in there, and that was his highest praise for me was, hey, you don't really know anything, but you'll do whatever we tell you to, and that's what it takes. So, so I was in the field. I went into my own truck. Back then it was different. So we ran 24/7, and when you were on call on the weekend, you just ran the calls. And I did my first weekend by myself, and I was busy. I was out Saturday, Sunday, almost all day. I mean, it was a lot. And I just worked a full weekend, back to the next full week. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is really rough. So I remember saying, like, hey, how about instead of this on-call schedule, I'll just do all the on-call. Like, make me the after-hours guy, and I'll just do that. And so I did that for a while and worked out pretty good.
Which was amazing because for our guys.
Yeah, well, then nobody else had to do that. It's like 4 o'clock hits. You start calling Jeff and quit calling me, you know.
Awesome.
So,
and you were the rare case of somebody who was really good at answering the phones and doing the work. And, you know, we hadn't
so we didn't have like dispatch back then. We didn't have anything. So like customers are calling, and I think at that time they were getting me, you know.
Right to your cell phone.
Yeah, it's like, hey, okay, I'll be out.
Right
I'm rolling, you know. So that was cool. And then I got an offer to from another company. They heard about what I was doing, I think from one of our guys that went over there. And they said, hey, come do that for us. But because I was doing it 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, had Sunday off. They said, come do that for us. You only have to do it 5 days a week. So I said, well, hey, that sounds pretty good. So I went to Barry, to your dad, and I said, hey, what do you think about that? He said, no, I can't match that offer, you know, like if that's what you got to do, go do it. So I thought, well, man, you know, just for my own sanity and my family and stuff. So I went and worked for that company for a while, and they were not busy, as busy as Jolly was. And they just really didn't have the work to keep me busy. So then they're like, hey, how about you start working days a little bit? And it was like more salesy, and I'm like not real good at that. I was like, man, I don't know. That's not exactly what I signed up for. So right about that same time, our kids were getting a little bit older. We homeschooled both the boys. Dara was kind of getting done with homeschool. And she's like, hey, I'd just like to get out of the house, go back to work. And so the plumbing company I was at, they basically had laid me off because they said, hey, we don't have the work, and if you don't want to come on to days, then we don't have enough to keep you busy at night. So I was freshly at home. So I told Dara, I said, hey, whichever one of us finds full-time work first can go back to work, and whoever doesn't will stay home and homeschool the kids. Well, I was starting to help out with the boys doing the homeschooling since I was at home, and I really liked it. I enjoyed that a lot. And I thought, hey, I'm not going to try too hard to find work. I'll let Dara find work, you know? And she did. I mean, she's gainfully employable. So I said, hey, great. And she really wanted out of the house, you know?
Sure.
So I thought that was a good trade-off. So then I took over schooling for the boys kind of in the late elementary school, middle school period, you
So
know.
this would have been like 2016, 2015, something like that.
Boy, I'm bad with dates, but somewhere in there.
2 or 3 years after you started with us, probably.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I started, was it 2013?
13, I think.
Yeah, 2013 I started, and so, yeah, it would have been 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. So I did that. So I was doing homeschool. Dara's working full-time, and then it wasn't too much time went by. You called me. Hey, what do you think about coming and doing some work for Jolly again? I said, hey, that's great. So when I left Jolly, you were just kind of starting to come on board more actively, and like you were starting to make that transition from your dad running things to you running things. So so you reached out to me, and I remember we met over here at Long Necks for lunch, and you pitched me the idea of doing like late night emergency dispatch. So I would be answering the calls. I wouldn't have to run the calls, but I would call the technician and send them out. And I thought, boy, that's perfect. I mean, it really was perfect timing, because I was doing school with the boys during the day, which was a lot of work, but not like incredibly taxing or anything. And then as soon as kind of the school day was done and Dara's getting home from her job, the phones start ringing, and I kind of took over the phones, and so I'd answer the phone starting at like 4 or 4:30 up till whenever. And usually they rang steady up until about 10. So phones were ringing all the time. And then after 10, it kind of quieted down. But many, many nights, I would say 2-3 nights a week, I'd get woken up after midnight, you know.
You had a knack for answering that phone like you were...
I learned how to wake up and be fully awake immediately.
Like you were waiting for it.
Yep. So, and to this day, if I hear the ringtone that I had on my phone to wake me up, I mean, I'm a light-ish sleeper, I think, so I think anything would have woken me up. You should hear my alarm now. It's like the gentlest lullaby, you know. But I had this ringtone I'll never forget. It's called Doomgate. Look it up sometime.
Okay.
I loved the name of it, and boy, it was Doomgate. If I hear that ringtone to this day, I almost go into like a panic attack.
It's like PTSD.
Yeah, it really is, because it's like, oh, that was the sound that like fully woke me up. But yeah, I learned how to come out of a full sleep into like Jolly Plumbing, you know. And back then we weren't drains, heating, and air. Yep. So it was Jolly Plumbing. This is Jeff. How can I help you? You know, boom. And I used to like, sometimes I would start answering personal calls, Jolly Plumbing, you know, because I was just so used to doing that.
So she just was used to it too, laying there next to you.
Well, she fortunately is a heavier sleeper than me.
Good.
So it didn't bother her too much. And, you know, my routine was come fully awake, out of bed, grab the phone, and I'm like walking out of the bedroom to the computer, you know, to do whatever I had to do to get somebody dispatched. But what was cool about that, since I'd been in the field, I could a lot of times solve the problem over the phone, you know. So it's like, hey, it's the middle of the night. Let me tell you how to shut your water off. We get somebody out there first thing in the morning. Way less expensive for you if we come tomorrow instead of right now in the middle of the night. And, of course, the techs loved that if I didn't have to send them out. So, and I really believe it was like a great customer experience, because it's like, hey, we're not trying to rake you over the coals or, you know, get more money out of you or anything. It's just we want you to be taken care of. And so that was cool. I was able to troubleshoot some stuff over the phone like that because of the experience I'd had in the field. So I did that for 5.5 years or so, and got my boys through school to the point where they didn't need me anymore as like a full-time active teacher. I still kept my toe in the water, but, you know, by late middle school, early-ish high school, they're kind of like running their own curriculum. I'm overseeing stuff, you know, but they're workers, you know, so they were both fully engaged as students. So I'm trying to think, did that overnight dispatch, and then, come help in the warehouse. So I think I was Scott Sherrock said, hey, what do you think about part-time coming in a couple days a week or every day, but just for a few hours, and just help us organize the warehouse. Warehouse was kind of out of control. And by that time, we'd moved into the building we're in now. Big warehouse, full warehouse. I don't know, how many square feet is that?
It's probably 3,500 or 4,000 square feet.
Yeah. So I'm bad at square footage, but the warehouse itself, to me, it's a big space.
Warehouse, yeah.
Well, when I came into the warehouse, here's probably 20 of those huge gray plastic totes just overflowing with PVC fittings all over the floor. And then there's like a mezzanine, a platform area that's built up. You take some stairs, and there's just this mountain of pipe up there, like pipe pieces, like coils. So, gas line and plastic pipe, poly and stuff that the install guys are putting in, and copper. I mean, plenty of PEX. Just this mountain. And I'd see guys come in after a job and just throw onto the top of the mountain pipe, leftover pieces of pipe that they didn't need. And then occasionally, people are picking through the pipe and going through these bins of all these fittings trying to find stuff. And I, so immediately I was like, okay, we can do better than this. So I would not have described myself at that time as an organized person,
Wow.
Especially. Like, I didn't think of that as a defining characteristic of me. Just, sure, I'm more organized than not, I guess, but it's not like who I am. It's just, whatever. Well, I learned, oh yeah, I like to keep things kind of, so.
It's funny because I would consider you one of the most organized people that I know.
Yeah, now I think that's more also how I would identify myself. Yeah. At the time, I didn't think there was anything unusual about that.
And keep in mind, like, at this time, if you said how many, copper 90s do you have out there, how many faucets, how many Sloan valves, we couldn't have told you anything about what we had. We couldn't have told you how many pieces of anything we had.
Yeah.
We had absolutely no idea the value of our inventory. We couldn't count it. We didn't have a way to track what was used on jobs. None of that was built yet.
Yeah, it was literal chaos in the warehouse. So, yeah, I mean, I spent a year and a half, me by myself, and it slowly morphed from part-time to full-time. And I was still doing the phones for a while, and then we kind of got to the point where it's like, hey, I can't work full-time day and do the phones. It's like, it's getting to be a little bit much. So, okay, yep, we're going to get Jeff off the phones. So that there was a lot of celebrating at the Vitron household when I got off the phones. So slowly moved into full-time in the warehouse, and it was just like a cleanup project, Start sorting stuff, get it organized, and then figure out. So one of the main things that I got brought in to do in the warehouse was you guys had just had some kind of system for techs to replenish stock on their trucks or like order things that they needed. And I guess that didn't work well. Everybody hated the system. So one of the things that I was being asked to do is like, hey, can you help us come up with an easy, quick, convenient way for the techs to order stuff for their trucks, material that they need. And I don't think there was any kind of like truck stock system, like the trucks weren't loaded out with a certain set of material.
They were all different.
Every truck was different, but there was like common stuff that everybody was needing, and so they'd want to be like getting that. Well, I started with a spreadsheet, and I thought, yeah, I think we can figure that out. Well, after 2 weeks, I realized spreadsheet's not going to cut it. So this probably is going to go long. Is that okay?
That's
How
great.
much time do you have?
I love it. It's great.
Because I'm like, well, let me go back just a little bit. So while I was teaching my boys, one of the things I would do when I had some downtime, when they were busy with stuff, I started playing EVE Online, which is this amazing video game that is, for many people, like a second job, and it was for me. I was like an inventory manager in this game, right? I managed the inventory of stuff that our company in the game, our corporation, had in like our little bases and stuff. So it was a spreadsheet and all this. Well, I also got back into my web development work because I thought, hey, it'd be cool if we could post some of this stuff online and people could log in and see their assets and track different things. And in this game, there's like, I'm going to forget, 6,000 or 8,000 different star systems. And so we had stuff scattered all over the place. I thought, hey, a database is perfect. So my web development was always like database heavy. So I'm like what they call a full stack developer. Sounds very official. I can do the back end. I can do the front end. I do a little bit of everything. I'm really just a mechanic. I don't know the theory behind anything. I'm completely self-taught at development, but I can do a little bit of all of that. So I got really into that for a couple years playing that game. Well, then when I came to Jolly, I was like, oh, this is the exact same stuff. I literally took some of that code that I wrote for the game, and that was the beginning of what today is Service Jack, but back then we called it Service Dwarf when it started, because Service Titan was like the big dog. And so I'm like, I'm just making my little version of Service Titan, so it's Service Dwarf, and it was the little dwarf. And you guys got me a Service Dwarf shirt, sweatshirt, the first year or so that I was here, which I thought was hilarious. I still have that somewhere. Anyway, so I started writing this, what became an inventory system that we were using to do order processing. And so, again, I didn't know anything about this. I'm just common sensing my way through it. This kind of makes sense. This kind of makes sense. And it was pretty cool years later when I got into the Service Titan inventory module, which we now use. That has replaced a lot of what Service Jack used to do. I kind of guessed right. I got a lot of the pieces right. So I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm like,
so Jeff, don't gloss over the Service Dwarf and Service Jack. Like, you built a full-fledged software to track our inventory when we couldn't find a good software to do so.
Yeah.
All of our techs we're using. And,
I didn't start off thinking I'm going to write this big software system. I literally just was like, I need something a little bit beefier than a spreadsheet to help keep track of this stuff. I know how to design databases. I know how to write the web front end. It was a tool literally for me. I just need this to help me do my job. And then it slowly grew over time and became more and more. More people accessing it and more useful to other folks. So,
and we'll probably touch on that in a little bit, but now it's a massive part of what we do every single day.
It's gotten a lot more important just here over the last few months. So, so warehouse, and so then I realized, okay, this is beyond warehouse. This is like inventory management now. We're really getting dialed into, everything has a spot. And then it was like, oh, well, trucks. Wouldn't it be cool if every truck got like loaded out the exact same way and they were kind of organized and laid out the same way? So we started a whole truck restock with the rapid restock program. I said, hey, here's a cool idea. Let's restock a truck. We'll take everything off of it and we'll load it back with a full loadout of the stuff we want the guys to be carrying. And Scott, I think, was the one who said, oh, it's like NASCAR. You pull in for the pit stop and they pull all the wheels off and put all the new stuff on. I say, yeah, rapid restock. So that's what we called it. And to this day, RR, even though we dropped the rapid because we do everything rapid now, but RR is how we denote our restock system. So that was cool. And I remember bringing Daniel and Scott and whoever out for the first time. Hey, look at this truck, how it's laid out. What do you think about that? And everything had like a bin location. Had little parts organizers for fittings, milk crates that they were like 11 by 11 and they fit perfectly on the shelf with no slide or anything. Hey, look at that. It's like it was made for it, So it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty official. So started a whole truck restock program. And and then it was like fleet stuff. So you were kind of, I think it was you, right?
Yeah.
Anything having to do with trucks came to you, like buying trucks or I don't.
Buying, leasing, mechanic stuff. I mean, we had a mechanic, but
we had mechanics here, but you were directing all of that, maintenance and stuff. Yep. So I said, hey, Brady, that seems crazy that you're doing that. How about like I help out? I got this system where I got all the trucks in it anyway. I could just add like a little ticketing system to that. So I slowly kind of took some fleet responsibility on. At some point, facility stuff. It was like, hey, it seems crazy that you're doing all this like nickel and dime stuff for the building. Like every little screw that needs tightened, Brady's got to like coordinate getting that fixed. So I said, hey, let me do some facility. So
naturally, IT.
And then IT stuff. So somebody had a weird computer problem. We have a great third-party vendor, Firewood, who covers the, everything. But it's like, hey, if it's like a 5-second fix and I can do it, of course. So people figured out, oh, hey, Jeff knows stuff about computers. So, hey, I don't have sound or I can't print, Usually that kind of stuff I can fix pretty quick. So, yeah. So I became the FIFI person, so FI, so fleet inventory, facility, and IT. So I had those four areas, and I kind of hung there for a while, like a couple years. I was the FIFI manager. And then we realized, hey, we really need somebody to do purchasing. So purchasing was never a thing before, but we need a purchasing person because it's too much for me to try to do with everything else that I was doing. So we created a purchasing function and went through a couple different folks to kind of get that system booted up. Lex, who is our current senior inventory purchasing amazing person, is in that role. And I think she's just recently did the podcast. I haven't seen hers yet, but I saw that it
was great. It was a really good conversation.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that too. But she's great. She's in that role now. So purchasing we added in there. And then, so I kind of hung out there for a couple years. And then just here recently, I added process improvement and data analytics to my kind of sphere. So now my nameplate on my door reads FIPIFIDA.
I love that.
FIPIFIDA.
So give us the rundown what it means.
Fleet, inventory, process improvement, facility, IT, data analytics. So
you're trying to get to 10 letters.
Right?
You're almost there.
Well, when I added these, I said I need letters to start dropping off of my title, not get added. So
well, you know how it is around here.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find something else for you to do.
So we could talk a lot more about all that stuff. The process improvement, data analytics stuff's super fun. But I will say, it does sound crazy, me rattling all this off. And it's like, man, why are you doing all that stuff? Because I work like a lot of hours. I'm here early.
More than anybody.
But you know what? I'll tell you, I feel like we're building something really cool, really great. And I love to be part of that. I didn't mean to get emotional, but I feel like why not be the best? You know, why not do stuff as best as you possibly can? So, turns out to do stuff at a high level, it really takes some work, you know? So, but I love the work. And when I was in the field years ago, I realized like, wow, I love the trades. I love what we do. Prior to that, when I was just a desk guy, a computer guy, I didn't know what happened in those dark corners of basements and in closets and in the office buildings and stuff. And, you know, the mechanical rooms that like make everything work in the world. I didn't know anything about that. And when I was in the field and started seeing the way I said it to myself then, and I still say it today, it's like, oh, the whole world comes apart. And you can like repair anything. You can fix stuff, you know. That was super cool. It's like, hey, behind that wall, you don't know this, but right behind there's this huge pipe, and all the sewage from all the floors above you goes through that pipe. And man, you're really glad that pipe is behind that wall, even though you've never thought about it for 1 second in your whole life. And I just loved that idea that there was this whole hidden world that I knew nothing about, that we were like making people's lives better every day in like really important ways, you know, like having a toilet that flushes. A flush beats a full house, right? I mean, that's the slogan, and it's true, because like nobody wants their toilet backing up. And to be providing people with clean drinking water and stuff like that, you know, these are like pretty essential life things. And now with HVAC, you know, just seeing the company grow and us like continuing that mission to like make people's lives better and stuff is super cool. And now we have an official mission of reimagining how we can do that, you know, how people experience home services.
Well, Jeff, like
trades.
as I'm listening to your story, obviously I've been a part of it. I've been right here with you the whole time and seen you grow, and I've always been amazed by what you do. But like the reimagining is just like, it keeps coming through my head. Like you have reimagined, like when you walked in and just said, hey, I'm looking to switch jobs, and we hired you, and that happens from time to time. And,
sure.
You know, it was like, oh, this is cool. This guy was a computer guy, and now he wants to be a plumber. But to ever imagine that could turn into all of the things, like that's like the reimagined thing that we talk about all the time. Well,
when we announced that mission, I just clicked with me immediately because it's like, yeah, that's what we do. You know?
And then even the tasks, like every single task, hey, take care of the warehouse. Next thing you know, you're building this vast software that's become the lifeblood of a lot of the things that we do 5 or 6 years later still. I mean, every step of the way in your career, you have absolutely reimagined, man. And I just got to say, you're a role model to all of us. Like, you're a leader to all of us, everybody in the company, but me especially. Like, I've looked up to you and how you do things, and you've changed my mindset on work. And, you know, the perfectionist that you are, you see something and you do something about it, even if it has nothing to do with your department. If you see something wrong, you bring it up,
Sure.
we talk about it, we figure out a way to make it right, and we figure out a way to make it perfect. And I've seen that resonate with myself and all of the leaders and even field staff and non-leaders at the company.
Yeah.
And that starts with you, man. It's been super cool.
I will push back against the perfectionist term because I don't see myself as a perfectionist. Perfection's impossible, right? We can't achieve that. I do think we can do better. And I see places all the time. It's like, hey, I think we could just do better, you know? Like, let's just take that to the next level. And I got to say, the team that I have right now, our Fifi team, out in the warehouse, making the truck replenishment happen, doing all the purchasing, the parts running that we do, Alan now helping with IT stuff, they embody that. Like, I love my team because they are all people who say, yeah, we just want to just see stuff done right, you know? And, hey, that's a problem. Let's fix that, you know? Let's figure out how to do that better. And we really see ourselves as support staff to the technicians, right? They're out in the front lines. They're making it happen for our customers. Our job is to make their jobs easier. Our job is to equip them and set them up for success every day. And I just love being able to do that, you know. When I was in the field and I was the frontline guy, that was super cool. I used to tell people, this is the closest to being a superhero I'm ever going to get, because when I show up and solve a problem for people, they're really glad that I was there that day. So that was a lot of fun. Turns out I'm not like the greatest technician in the world. I was competent. I could handle about 85% of the stuff that I encountered, but I was not like the world's greatest technician, right? So...
But what experience that you got doing
Great
that now?
experience. And, you know, I've come full circle back to sitting at a desk and doing computer work a lot, but with a completely transformed outlook on how much that work matters. Because, you know, I'm not the best with my hands or out in the field, but I can do stuff on the computer that is useful and helpful and not everybody can do. And so it's like, okay, hey, I've just changed the way that I'm helping people out. But I love that. Love the team, and I just feel like we're just getting started.
Me too.
You know, there's so much more that we can do, so many more interesting things that we can get into, and just processes that we can optimize. And so
you pretty much have your next 3 years planned out already, don't you?
I've already got, as everybody knows, I love our ClickUp tool where we keep all of our tasks, and I already have stuff scheduled out to like end of 2026. So
amazing. All right, so I mean, we could talk all day about everything you've done here, but I do have a few questions. So
oh yeah, sure.
I want you to let's rattle off every position that you, your wife Dara, and your two boys Kent and Reed have done here.
Okay. So I was a field tech, plumbing service tech. Kent was a drain tech. Let's see, I did overnight phone, so call center, you could call that, and dispatch. Dara's doing dispatch right now, so we'll call that dispatch again. Dara has been involved with some accounting data entry, so she's helped out the accounting department a little bit. Reed and Kent both have worked in the warehouse, just helping receive orders and process transfers and all of that. Kent currently is a parts runner, so he leads up our parts running, and he's does all of our tool check-ins and check-outs. And then, you know,
Everything
me with everything that I just talked about, from the warehouse to spreadsheets. So
it's close to
almost every part of the
everything
business. Yeah.
that we can do.
Yeah. Accounting used to be something I never had anything to do with, but purchasing, that function is kind of like part of your accounting department,
Sure.
right? So I got a lot more involved with the accounting aspect of the business at that time, and now I'm talking with Paige all the time. So.
And now you really are probably more than anybody in the whole company ingrained in every single function because of the data projects and having to have a deep understanding.
The data goes everywhere, and so that's become a big chunk of what I've been doing here lately is helping get our operational numbers a little bit more dialed in. And so, yeah.
So, Jeff, I'm curious of there's only really a few of us who have been here since that when I took over the business from my dad and that transition when we were at the old building. From your perspective, just what is the difference like? Talk about that change and how different that is and what the biggest differences are in the company.
Yeah. I think it's what any business would go through that goes from that size to this size, There's no way to make that growth without putting a little bit more structure in place, making things a little bit, I don't want to say professional like we weren't professional back then, but you just need a bit more professional stuff, So whether that's people in more specialized roles, to do more specialized work, because not everybody can do everything. But I guess I could talk a lot about the differences, but I think those things are pretty obvious. We're bigger, there's more people. We have people in more specific roles and stuff like that. But one thing that hasn't changed, and this has been really interesting, it was like a close-knit group back then, and closer knit because there were just fewer people in the circle. But I feel like it's stayed that way even as we've gotten bigger. I don't know everybody in the company super well, right? You just can't when we're 75, 80 people, whatever we're at now. But the team that I work with, I know really well and really enjoy hanging out with them. And there's not anybody at the company when we're at a company picnic or a function or a Christmas party or whatever that I can't sit down and strike up a conversation with and really enjoy getting to know them better. So we had great people back then, and we still have great people, So that to me, if you want to do well in business, not just as a business, but do well as a member of the community or just an entity that is comprised of human beings, you got to have great people, right? And I feel like we have that, and I feel like we're a place that helps people get better, Because along the way, I've had some hard days, oh man, I'm going to be stuck in the back of this truck for the rest of my life. I felt that way years ago when I was out in the warehouse, oh man, this is tough, or a tech leaves and his truck's a mess and I got to clean it up and stuff. It's oh boy, okay, I don't know if I signed up for this, but you endure, right? You persevere. Our Fifi team, we just put up these persevere posters that Dara helped me put together with one of my favorite quotes about getting knocked down 70 times and you get up saying, here comes number 71, you endure, you get through it. And that really has formed character in me, I could have checked out many times along the way. And I was no, you know what? It's worth it to keep going. And this company is worth it. The people are worth it. The work that we do matters. So to have that is really cool. So I feel like not only do we have a great environment right now, but it's an environment that forces you to be better. And that's cool. That's really cool.
So that leads me to the mission, vision, values. You mentioned the mission to reimagine how the world experiences home services. What about the values? What value resonates most with you?
Well, so we have little icons for the values that we can use on our Discord communication, like little emojis, and they occur in the frequency that you use them. So the one you click on the most is at the beginning of the list. So if you looked at my list, you would see, and sometimes it changes a little bit, but number one always is winter's work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that embodies you, man.
Yeah.
As you know, we're trying to always dial you back on the amount of hours and time. I mean, sometimes I feel like you would just never leave here if we let you, And
yeah, well, that's definitely a top value for me. And I do have to say, this is important to say. The way I operate is like me, and I don't expect that from anybody else. I don't think it would be healthy or good for a lot of people. I tell my team all the time, hey, I'm probably here before you are, and I'm probably here after you leave for the day. That's the way it should be. Do not ever feel like you got to work the way that I do or anything. Like, be efficient and be effective and do be productive, of course. Put in your 40 hours, but then I'm never going to like tell you, hey, you got to stay later or whatever. I'll take care of that, you know. Yep. So I do think it's important to say that, because part of an unhealthy work culture is overwork and workaholism and all this. Now, in the trades, in service work in general, you're going to have to stay out late sometimes when a job doesn't go the way you want it to. You can't guarantee you're going to get home at a certain time every day. But, we want to have a healthy culture and put some constraints on how many hours people are working. So I don't want to like ever hold me up as some kind of, hey, we need to be working like Jeff. No, you do not. It's probably not a healthy thing if you would try to do that. But it is value, and I do believe that, what's the tagline on Winter's Work? Excellence is a habit, right?
Yep. Not an act, but a habit.
Yeah, not an act, but a habit. So anyway.
So I think the last question I have, and you've probably answered this a little bit, but what is your favorite thing about working at Jolly?
Yeah, well, I do feel like I've touched on that along the way here. For me personally, my favorite thing is the autonomy that I have. So you've said it a couple times, like I'll see something and say, hey, that seems like a problem. Can we fix that? And a lot of times the answer is, sure, Jeff, go ahead, figure out how to fix that. We're more than happy for you to do that. Well, that's great, and it's one reason that, like, as far as I can tell today, I plan to stay here as long as I possibly can, because I have a lot of autonomy, and I can, like, kind of go anywhere in the business and help make it better, and I love that. At a really big company, you just can't do that because there's too much structure in place, and, there's too many, like, little fiefdoms and stuff. Jolly's at this perfect state right now where I can still really get into every corner of things, which is cool. I hope that we're laying the groundwork to become whatever the next stage of our evolution looks like.
We are. Yeah, I think we are.
And so I think we're laying that groundwork now. So that's super cool. It's a very fun time to be part of what's going on here. So that, for me personally, I love that. There's a lot of other good things I could talk about. I've heard a lot of people in the podcast talk about our culture and friendships and all of that. All of that's true. Maybe that resonates a little bit less with me. I'm not as yellow as some people. That's our color code. I'm not as fun. But yeah, so for me, it's kind of everybody being okay with, hey, let's just let Jeff loose and see what he does, and you guys trust me to make things better.
Well, man, this is really cool, just getting to talk to you and like hearing the story again and your perspective on stuff. As I've told you before, you're like a fascinating guy to me, and just like somebody I'm so thankful for being here. Like, seriously, people say it all the time to people, we couldn't do this without you, but like there's no world we could do what we're doing as a company without you, man. You are like an absolute cornerstone of what we do, and you have been for a long time. So I just can't thank you enough, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, for everything you've done for us. And I'm looking forward to doing it for a lot longer with you.
Good.
I think we're just getting started.
I know all that stuff is true, and so it's really nice to hear that. But yeah, I'm in it for the long haul, and let's see what we get done over the next 25 years.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.